Hi, my name is Peter Shee. I'm currently completing a Bachelor of Clinical Exercise Physiology at the University of New England. I'm completing this presentation as a part of an assignment for EXSC 335, Motor Control and Human Development, which is coordinated by Dr. Dominic McNeil. The topic for my presentation is based upon laboratory activity related to speed-accuracy trade-off. In order to make this presentation, the information has come from the current manual that is being used by the unit. The book is by Shumway and Woolacott, and the title is Motor Control, Translating Research into Clinical Practice. As well was used were clinical article reviews as well as research online. Now firstly, let's ask, what is speed-accuracy trade-off? Well, Zimmerman states that it's the complex relationship between the individual's willingness to respond slowly and make relatively fewer errors compared to the willingness to respond quickly and make relatively more errors. This means there is a significant correlation between the speed in which you will perform a movement and the accuracy that you have with the increased speed. This is also true in the reverse, where the slower you might perform a movement, the greater accuracy you will have. Now, it's important to understand there's a whole lot of study on this topic, and it all revolves around a law called Fitz's law. Fitz's law is a scientific law that predicts the time required to rapidly move to a targeted area is a function of the ratio between the distance to the target and the width of the target. Fitz's law is used to model the act of pointing, either by physically touching an object with a hand or finger, or by virtually pointing to an object on a computer with using a pointing device. Now, I want you to perform a small experiment for me. I want you to imagine now that you have a large hole in a wall to your front. Your aim is to reach out to the wall and place your finger through the hole. But I'm going to give you two rules. The first rule is you have to do this as fast as you can. And the second rule is your finger must not touch any part of the hole at any stage. Now, if you did this, you would have found it took no time at all to perform the movement, and your finger had no trouble getting through the hole without touching any part of the hole at any stage. Now, here's the tricky part. I want you to imagine that the hole size now is the size of a pinprick, but you know that you can still get your finger inside. Now, perform the same experiment, but remember you still have these two rules, and that is you must do it as fast as you can and still not touch the hole at any stage. Did you notice how much slower it took for you to be able to perform the movement? If you did it right and you had noticed that it had to be significantly slower in order to be accurate and not to touch the sides of the hole. So there you have it, we have Fitz's law. So to understand why this is the case, we have to look at studies carried out by Adams in 1971. He determined that if the motor program contained all the information needed to carry out the action, the movement operates under what we call the open loop control system. Therefore, this means the open loop control system has no feedback or mechanisms for error regulation. However, if while performance is continually registered and evaluated for the accuracy of the movement, then the movement is being controlled through what we call a closed loop control system. So this means that a closed loop control system has feedback, error detection, and error correction as its key elements. So it's safe to say that the initial part of the movement is the only part that has the commands to perform the movement, and during the movement, feedback through both proprioceptive and visual means will allow for correction over the range. Now, in order to allow closed loop feedback control to occur, we have to gain feedback in order to make corrections. So why is it important to understand this? Well, believe it or not, you are using these two systems all the time and most likely completely unaware of it. I want you to think of the first time that you went to the gym. Do you remember performing a movement that was unfamiliar to you, like a bench press? As you pushed the bar above your chest, the bar moved around the place, and you found it very hard to control the action, and to control it, you just simply had to slow it down. This is your closed loop control system going into action. Through imagery, you generally had a little bit of information to allow you to start the movement, but when it started to go wrong, you had to make corrections to get the bar all the way up without losing control. Now, do you remember going to the gym after a while, and you got much better at the bench press? The movement was better and more accurate, and you were able to perform the movement with greater speed with less mistakes. Well, this is your open loop control system going into action. By default and repetition, you now have the information to be able to perform the movement, and without too much thought, it just happens. Now, in order to determine if speed accuracy is accurate, we conducted a lab at the university. There were two experiments that we did. The first experiment was to throw 5 beanbags at a target on a wall. The target had 3 areas, which were small, medium, and large in size. The task was to throw the 5 beanbags firstly at the large target, then the medium target, then the small target. The time was recorded from the moment the beanbag left the hand of the performer until it struck the wall. The participant was to throw the beanbag as quickly as possible in order to hit the target, and the score was recorded. Now, this task was performed a total of 25 times at the large, then the medium, and then the small target. When the results were collated, it appeared that Fitts' law had applied. The final average score for all participants at the large target was 7.9 hits. The medium target was 7.6 hits, and the small target scored 6.7 hits. So what are our findings here? Well, as you might be able to see, as the target size decreased, so did the number of hits on the target. Now, when looking at the time, we saw an inverse result to the hits. The large target had an average time of 0.43 seconds. The medium target had an average time of 0.45, and the small target had a time of 0.48. So as you can see here, the target size, as the target size decreased, the greater amount of time was required to hit the target. And this is due to the brain attempting to work out how to best get the beanbag to the smaller target accurately. Now, on to the second experiment. The task was using a Podu pegboard. The pins on the pegboard are shaped similar to an old key, and the holes in the board are identical but orientated randomly on the board. The purpose of the task was to place as many pins into the board within 30 seconds, firstly by using the preferred hand, then the non-preferred hand, and then lastly with both hands. Now, as for the results, the preferred hand scored an average of 13.2 pegs, the non-preferred hand scored a total of 11.9 pegs, and the two hands scored a total of 16 pegs. So what can we take out of these results? You can see the preferred hand scored better than the non-dominant hand. This is due to the ability to have greater dexterity within the fingers and throughout visual cues. The preferred hand is able to more accurately determine the orientation of the peg in order to insert the peg in the board. Now, when using the non-preferred hand, the dexterity or ability to control the fingers is reduced, therefore not able to orientate the pegs as easily as the preferred. But what about the two hands? Well, the number is significantly higher, as the most common method used was for the non-dominant hand to first off predetermine the orientation of the peg, which is then passed on to the preferred hand with the same orientation. While this task was being performed, the eyes were then looking for the correct hole for it to be inserted and allowing for the dominant hand to place it in with greater speed. This shows evidence on the dynamic systems theory, where there was a changing environment and the feedback gained from the non-preferred hand allowed spatial awareness to occur and an accurate decision to be made in that changing environment. This means that where there is greater information available, the accuracy can increase, therefore speed can also be increased. It's safe to say that you're using this in everyday life, and decisions have to be made in order to perform a task. You might find that you will sacrifice accuracy in order to gain speed, and conversely, you might sacrifice speed in order to gain accuracy. In most cases, you might find that people, in particular athletes, will attempt to perform the tasks in the quickest possible time with the greatest amount of accuracy. However, a determination must be made as to the urgency of the task in order to determine if speed or accuracy will be sacrificed to perform the task. An AFL player is under this pressure constantly. Now, due to the speed of the game, the player is constantly having to make decisions. However, this is the ultimate goal, is to kick the ball between the centre goalposts. And in most cases, it's done under a great deal of pressure. Now, if allowed, like after being given a free kick, he can take his time to line the ball up and allow him greater chance to be able to achieve the task. But when in the middle of a ruck, he has just seconds to kick the ball. And he has to hope that through practice and with the limited amount of information he was able to process, that the ball passes through the centre sticks. We can see ourselves in everyday life learning things like to drive a car, performing new movements, or even practicing new skills. That all requires for us to slow down in order to get it right. but through repetition can slowly and accurately increase the speed. So, although this lab showed the results that were expected, my observations were that not all participants performed the tasks in the same manner. In saying this, it can be assumed that some of the data is skewed a little. So, in order to ensure a more accurate result, instructions to perform the task might be more controlled. Other things like human error in timing, where the participant relied on the timer to accurately start and stop the timer, or the timing device, at the release of the beanbag and when it hit the wall. But also fatigue could be a factor due to the time that it took to perform the task, both for the participant and the recorder. All of these factors could play a part in determining skewed results. So, in order to make a better lab, more control may be needed to employ better and more accurate data. Anyway, there we have it. Speed-accuracy trade-off. Something we have in our everyday life. As in trainers or scientists, it's also something we will use on a regular basis to either train people or study and understand how movement is learned. I hope you have enjoyed my presentation and certainly hope that you have learned something. Thank you very much for listening.